right, thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. Hey, we do behind the scenes every single day on TikTok. So if you're not following us on TikTok, head over there and you can watch behind the scenes live as we do this forecast. We're just right off the screen over here. And if you want to see the entire forecast, well, you are in the right place. We do a live forecast every day, just about noon, maybe 12:15. Depending on what time we get the forecast done, we talk about the entire nation, what's going on today, and what's been going on. 20 years ago today, we had Hurricane Katrina, a Cat 5 hurricane in the middle of the Gulf, and we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. But I want to talk about the storms today first. We have storms out in Colorado today, Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas for tomorrow. But really the big thing here is not necessarily the hail, but the flood risk. So that's a sneaky risk that we have to pay attention to, and we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes, and then we'll talk about the hail chance as well. Yesterday, we saw a few showers and storms right along the mountainous regions of California, very similar to what we saw the day before. A little bit of hail up there, but really it was a wind event more than anything. It's been a pretty quiet weather week for us, other than that flooding risk that has been lingering anywhere from the western side of the U.S. all the way into the plains. And that's where we see that flood risk today as well. We have a line of showers and storms that are hugging anywhere between Denver and all the way into Oklahoma City. Not only is that going to increase the flood risk in this area, especially after we saw several showers and storms over the last 2 or 3 days, bringing us 2 or 3 inches of rain. Now our soil is very saturated. Our roads are very wet out there right now. Anywhere from the northern side of Oklahoma all the way into Kansas, we've got showers and storms ongoing for today, and so that's going to increase the flood risk. But we've also got that severe weather risk, not only across Colorado and Kansas, but also up to the north, a brand new marginal risk that's a level 1 risk for hail from Minnesota to portions of South Dakota. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the hail risk here in just a few minutes. Tomorrow, we bring you down into Texas, Oklahoma, and portions of Arkansas. Friday, a very low risk for storms, but I do think that that will change as we get a little bit closer to the end of the work week. So I told you about those showers and storms, right, that are hugging across the eastern side of Oklahoma right now. We've got a few sprinkles happening here in Oklahoma City, all the way into the central portion of Kansas. That's increasing the flood risk in this area, which we'll talk about, as I mentioned, in just a few minutes. Take a look at that low pressure system. Well, that is the weather maker for today. We are going to watch that low pressure system as it fires off storms later on this afternoon and evening that could produce hail anywhere from just to the east of Denver all the way into the eastern portion of Colorado and western portion of Kansas. We've also got a little boundary up here in Minnesota and South Dakota, and that could also fire off some storms later on today. But right now, all that we're watching for is a little bit of rain. Nothing severe right now. Flood risk in the northeastern side of Oklahoma, southeastern side of Kansas, and we'll talk about that. 70 degrees here in Oklahoma City, 68 in Denver. It's gorgeous outside today. Other than that cloud cover, it's a really nice afternoon to get outside, maybe sit on the patio. Maybe it's sweater weather for a few of us. What about hail weather? Well, it's a pretty low hail chance. You can see that we've got some areas highlighted here in yellow from our significant hail model right here. We've got a little bit of yellow popping up in portions of Colorado as well. What's your hail size today? It's small. Quarter size hail is what I'm going for today, maybe $50 for some. I don't think that we could get too much larger than that. We just don't have those significant forcings in place. We've got the moisture. But do we have that lift to sustain those large hailstones in the upper levels of the atmosphere? I do not think so. So I've got a low risk for not only small hail, but also some very isolated storms this afternoon. Not all of these storms are going to be hail producers, not only from Colorado to Kansas, but also from South Dakota to Minnesota. So we're not going to hype this for you guys. You know, we're very, very accurate here, and we want to stay that way. We've also got some high wind expected anywhere from La Junta all the way into Limon and into Burlington, Colorado. So some strong wind is possible, 65, maybe 70 miles an hour, kicking up some dust out there. I'm sure that you've seen a lot of those videos over the last few days. Yeah, you need rain, right? or you're going to get very, very dusty storms. For your tornado risk, it's a very, very low tornado risk today. No significant risk in the forecast, and not enough to even put a region on the map. So what are we watching for today? We're watching for that high wind risk, and we're watching for that hail risk as well. More significant risk than what we saw yesterday, so it's something to watch, but it really is a quiet forecast other than that flooding risk. So again, this area highlighted in green where you're getting all of this rain, just shower after shower, round after round of storm, not only today but also tomorrow, that's going to increase the flash flood risk. And again, we'll talk about it here in just a few minutes. Let's talk about the timeline for storms today. We've got a few storms just to the west of I-25 right now. As that continues to push to the east, these storms will strengthen. Do we think there's going to be any hail for Denver? No. I think it's going to be a very, very low risk for Denver. Now, that's not saying it can't happen. Denver surprises us sometimes, but I don't think that we have that upper air forcing for strong storms in Denver today. You're going to get a little bit of rain, but the really strong storms are going to be on the eastern side of Colorado and western side of Kansas. Now, again, we're talking about a lot of places right now, so comment where you're watching from, and we will try to get to all of those different cities. I'm going to take a drink of water real quick, and then we'll go and we'll move into Minnesota. Alrighty, do you guys like my cup? I've got a nice Brahms cup, hot pink cup for my water today. Alrighty, let's go up to Minnesota. We're having fun here because there's not a ton to talk about. Maybe a few showers and storms. It's going to be very isolated. Anywhere from South Dakota to Minnesota, the storms will fire up along this boundary today, later on in the afternoon and into the late evening hours. So look at your timeline right now. We're talking about 9 o'clock this evening for those strong to severe storms. Wind, not too much of a hazard here. These are going to be hailers. We're watching for hailers here. There's your marginal risk. It's a level 1 risk. We've got 2 level 1 risks today. They're highlighted in green. Alrighty, let's move on. Let's talk about that flooding risk. I told you earlier that we have a level 3 flood risk for today. Now, while it's a low hail chance for today, flooding is definitely a sneaky hazard that we have to keep an eye on. This level 3 risk goes anywhere from Arkansas all the way into Kansas. They're highlighted in red. Now for tomorrow, we only have a level 2 risk on the docket right now, but I do expect this to be upgraded to a level 3 risk as we get a little bit closer to the event. And then for Friday, we have a level 1 risk for a good portion of the plains and then all the way down into Texas, including Dallas here. We're expecting just round after round of rain. And after we get that first round of rain, here comes a second round of rain on Saturday. We have another chance for flash flooding. So make sure that you're watching that flood risk in Texas all the way through the weekend. Now, over the last 24 hours, we did have a break in terms of rainfall, which is great news. You know, it gives our soil a little bit of time to absorb all of that moisture before we have the next round of showers and storms. And after that, we are going to get a pretty significant amount of rain anywhere from the northeastern side of Oklahoma into Kansas, all the way into places like Joplin, Missouri, and then down into Arkansas. Even places just along the Gulf, so we're talking about the middle of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia here, also expected to get a significant amount of rain. And that's going to continue as we head into the weekend. So what you're looking at is a 5-day rainfall outlook. Let me show you that one more time, a 5-day rainfall outlook here. Now let's move on. We talked about today. Let's move on to tomorrow. Showers and storms, especially with that low pressure system, is going to shift to the east a little bit. It's not going to move very fast here because we've got a high pressure system farther off to the east that's blocking that movement. That's why we have that round and round and round of showers and storms. That's why we have that flood risk in this area. We've got another chance for significant hail for tomorrow, some strong winds associated with that as well, but a very, very low tornado chance this week. By Friday, again, it's a very low risk for storms. But let's take a look at tomorrow. I want you to see your timeline. Are you going to get rain during your Thursday plans? Well, if you're in Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, it looks pretty likely that you're probably going to get some rain on Thursday. As we head into Friday, that's going to be more of a southeastern problem, Louisiana, all the way into Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia for those showers and storms on Friday. So I hope all of those Friday football games, if you've got tailgating, I hope you have a tent because it may be rainy. Let's take you out to the Atlantic Ocean now. Let's go to Fernand, which is still a tropical storm at the moment. That's going to continue to move off to the north and east into a low pressure system. So we'd call this a post-tropical storm or tropical depression. There you go. Took me a minute, but I got there. Post-tropical storm or a tropical depression. Right there. That's what we're expecting as this storm continues to move to the north and east and weaken into the later portion of the work week. So we're talking about Thursday or Friday. Fernand will be a tropical depression. We've got Fernand right now, but Gabrielle is next on the list. Humberto after that, Imelda after that. We're expecting about 12 to 17 named storms this season. It's a little bit above average. Our average for named storms is 14. It's a little bit above average. We're expecting about an average to above average season, so we've still got a lot of time left in our hurricane season. We're still at the very beginning of this hurricane season right here. Very end of August. September 12th, I think, is the peak time for Atlantic activity. So we'll continue to watch that. You know, if you take a look back at last year, this is exactly what we saw last year, where it was a slow start to the season, and then all of a sudden we got into September and we really started to pick up on that activity. That lasted until about the middle of October, and then we finally started to slow down. Now I want to take you back about 20 years. I'm sure you've seen a lot of this on social media. If you haven't, let me remind you that we are at the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Now, New Orleans is no stranger to hurricanes. Over the last 75 years, you can see how many hurricanes have hit in New Orleans or just outside of New Orleans. But Hurricane Katrina, of course, a very historic hurricane, impacted a lot of people. Not only in Louisiana, but also portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. Making landfall first, the first landfall, so Hurricane Katrina made landfall twice in the U.S. The first landfall was a Category 1 landfall on August 25th, 2005. Then it rapidly intensified into a Category 5 hurricane in the middle of the Gulf. It took a sharp turn to the north, taking aim for Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama and the panhandle of Florida. We weren't quite sure where it was going to go, but we knew it was a strong hurricane, and thankfully it weakened to a strong Category 3 hurricane, making landfall on August 29th, 2005. Now I want to take a minute. I want to show you some really, really impactful pictures here from that hurricane. You can see many buildings underwater, many buildings destroyed. Unfortunately, Hurricane Katrina took the lives of many, many people, and it was a disaster on top of disasters. Not only was this a wildly impactful hurricane, but right after that, we got temperatures in the triple digits, in the 90s, and it was hot, and there was no electricity. Again, this is what we call a disaster on top of disasters. And these pictures, very impactful. There's something to remember. Wow. 20 years ago today, all of this was happening. Or 20 years ago on Friday, all of this was happening. Wow. And we will continue to show pictures and videos, and we'll continue to talk about this storm throughout our forecasts for the rest of the week. So join us back on Thursday and Friday as we continue to talk about Katrina. Alrighty, let's move on and let's talk about that fall-like weather. Perfect time for football because we've got temperatures that really do feel like fall. We're 15, 20 degrees below average for this time of the year, which means what we would normally be at is in the 90s, most likely anywhere from Oklahoma to Texas, most of the southern U.S. in the 90s for this time of the year, maybe 80s the farther north that you go. But temperatures are about 10 to 15 degrees below average. So that means that temperatures are in the 60s and 70s. It's one of those days that you can turn your AC off. You can open up the window. It's gorgeous out there. 80 degrees for the high today here in Oklahoma City. Overnight lows in the 60s. That's enough to turn your AC off, give your AC a little bit of a break, which never happens in August. Unfortunately, places like Texas are going to stay hot. California and all the way up into Seattle are going to stay hot as well. I posted a picture the other day kind of bragging about the nice weather that we're having, and Seattle Weather Blog, they commented, they said, hey, not us, we're in the 90s today. And I was like, you know what? That's payback for being in the 70s in June. You know, you guys had gorgeous weather back in June. Yeah, you've got some summer heat going on right now. And a lot of us do, anywhere from the West Coast all the way down into the Four Corners. You go down into the southern portion of Arizona and New Mexico, those temperatures are still very toasty. But we're going to take advantage of that fall-like weather. And how long is that going to last? Thankfully, for quite some time. You look all the way into September, so we're talking about September 1st all the way through the 5th at this point. So about the first week of September. And it looks like those temperatures, nice and cool, are going to stick around. Now, we're not talking about 50s. Don't talk about crisp fall weather quite yet. We're talking about temperatures just below average. So those 60s, 70s, 80s will probably be sticking around all the way through the very beginning of September, other than the West Coast, which will stay pretty warm. Now, I would be worried about fire weather. However, we do have a pretty good chance for rain as we head into the first portion of September as well. Above average rainfall totals for a good portion of the U.S., which I like to see because we want to mitigate that fire weather. We want to stay ahead of it. We don't want fire weather to return. We saw that a few years ago, and that was absolutely devastating. And there's your forecast. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us for that Hurricane Katrina recap. We'll continue to do that over the next few days as we approach the 20th anniversary. We'll also be talking about the current weather, whether we get storms in the eastern portion of Colorado or in Minnesota or South Dakota today. We'll be mapping that here at Hail Trace. So if you want to see an up-to-date hail, wind, or tornado map, head over to our website, hailtrace.com. Give us a call at 855-334-4245 if you are interested in a wind or hail or tornado map. But if you just want up-to-date weather information or maybe just some fun weather videos, we post a lot of those on our TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So follow us on those platforms as well. And if you want a behind the scenes of what we do here at Hail Trace, we do a behind the scenes forecast every single weekday on TikTok. So head over there and follow us on those platforms as well. Thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we'll see you back here for your forecast